Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. It's Sunday, December the 11th, and I like to do these Sunday shows because Sundays are a day when I have a chance to catch up on all the news of companies and do my homework on companies. I got a great group to talk about today. I'm going to have some themes to talk about. One is projects in Nevada. I'm also going to talk about a couple of my favorite orogenic gold systems. Then I have base metals, followed by an Alaska play, and finally diamonds. I have a very undervalued diamond company that I don't think people are really understanding. So I'm going to talk about those. Why don't I get right into it? I'm not going to punish you with too much of my face made for radio. I'll go to a screen share here and we'll get started with the first company. This is this stuff that I-80 Gold has been putting out is quite remarkable. This was a news release on November the 14th, I believe. Yes, November 14th. I-80 Gold hits hilltop discovery, yields bonanza grade CRD mineralization at Ruby Hill. Results include 60 grams of gold, 900 grams of silver, 15.7% lead, and 1.1% zinc. What is very unique about this project is that CRDs are usually zinc, lead, and silver. You usually don't see bonanza grade gold. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about why I think that that's happening, that you're getting this dramatic overprinting of gold. Basically, I think it's structurally controlled, and I'm going to go to Google Earth in a moment, and I'll show you some of the structures that I'm talking about. Before I do that, I wanted to go to their stock chart, and here you can see a stock that has just gone through a golden cross just on Friday on very heavy volume. And it is trading aggressively above its 52 or 50-day moving average and its 200-day moving average. I think this one has a lot higher to go. And these technical indicators are a very good precursor or indication of where a stock is heading. And once they do a golden cross, they tend to go a lot higher. And again, this is sort of what got everybody really excited, was this 60 gram and gold, 900 grams of silver, lead, zinc. And then I've often said that you could just look at the news release, the headlines of the news releases, and be impressed with what I-80 Gold is doing. Here's just a snapshot. You can keep scrolling down and you'll find more. But 15 days after they announced that bonanza grade CRD, bonanza grade gold and base metals and precious metals, November 29th, they announced that they hit 9 grams of gold over 51 meters at the Ruby Hill. This is on their Ruby Deeps, and I'll show you the difference between those two. See this big pit here? I'm going to highlight that on Google Earth in a moment. Here's where they're getting look at the continuity of that high grade at the Ruby Deeps. Just incredible stuff. And I'm going to go to Google Earth now, and I'll show you why this is all so incredible. Here's that Ruby, or that Archimedes pit. And over here is where, just underneath this pit here, starts their 426 zone. And then a little further west and a little deeper is where the Ruby Deeps deposit is. And the combination of those two is well, actually the pit and the pit gives you easy access to the 426 zone that you saw on that cross section earlier. And then that 426, if you keep following the 426 deeper, you run into the Ruby Deeps. So they can get at the 426 zone from the bottom of the pit. Then they keep going through the 426 zone and they'll be into Ruby Deeps. This is a tremendously exciting situation in that this looks like very high margin gold, and it's high margin gold and very profitable to mine. And I'm very excited about what they have going on at Ruby Deeps and the 426 zone and some other zones that they're finding. These are gold zones with high-grade continuity. Exactly what you want to make a multi-million ounce gold mine. And that's what I think they have on the west side of the pit. But on the east or on the south side of the pit, right over in this area here where you can see my cursor, my hand, is where they're finding this high-grade CRD with a high-grade gold overprint. And you'll notice that there are some structures here that lead to the pit. And that's around where they're getting their that CRD. And now I'm going to zoom into this pit a little bit because I want to show you something that is quite important. You see this area here, this is a big alteration area inside of the pit. They were just starting to get into this, and over in this direction is where they have a skarn deposit. Skarns are related to CRD deposits. They're kind of the continuum of a CRD deposit. And so they it looks like let's say the start of the system is way up over here, and now they're getting excellent continuity of that CRD down in here, which is where they hit that 60-gram number. And so you've got access to a high-grade gold system over here. You've got access to a CRD over here, and from these old workings. This was a pit that was owned by Barrick, and you can see this material here is where the pit wall failed, which is when they stopped mining there. They basically mined out what they thought they mined out was the oxide zone, and that's really all they were concerned with. They weren't really concerned with this skarn and the CRD. They were focused on oxide gold. Now, interesting enough, over in this 426 zone, they're finding a lot more oxide material than they had anticipated. And that's really good because you've got the Ruby Hill mining complex over here, and they have the ability to process that oxide material right on this property. It was in production. It has a milling, it has a processing facility for oxides. And then, so that's really important as well, because the Ruby Deeps is a sulfide, so they're going to need to use a facility that they bought to enable them to process that material. But in the meantime, they didn't really plan on hitting as much oxide material as they did. And this is putting them in a situation where they that they will have a ability to process oxides and also this CRD material if they retrofit it for that. So, you know, this gold project over here is a world-class system, and this CRD over here is a world-class system, all accessible by a historical open pit. And that's a phenomenal situation. And, you know, to have two world-class assets on one project is exciting on its own. But then when you consider that they also have another world-class project at their Granite Creek project. Let me just let's look at the last news release that they had from Granite Creek. I-80 intersects high-grade gold in Granite Creek underground drill program, including 28 grams of gold over 17 meters, 39 grams of gold over 9.5 meters, 20 grams of gold over 21 meters. These are thick intersections of extremely high-grade gold. Here you can see the continuity in their OG zone, and this map is really important because you can see this Getchell fault that goes right through Granite Creek. You can see this blue package of rock. That's the same rock that this Turquoise Hill is, and that's a $25 million or 25 million ounce gold mine. And everything is open as they keep stepping out to the north here. And they've got the historical mining, then they've got the OG zone, and then they've got their South Pacific zone. And South Pacific, let me just get you to the last news release on there from their South Pacific zone. Here you go. October 18th. This company just chronically puts out great news. I-80 Gold releases high-grade results from South Pacific zone at Granite Creek, 23 grams of gold over 5.3 meters, 9 grams of gold over 11 meters, 15 grams of gold over 6.6 meters. But what's really important is you see all these pink and red dots. Those are the continuity of the high-grade gold. Something else I would point out, look at up here, you're getting these grades, 8.4 grams, 8.7, 9.7, 23 grams. You go a little deeper in this zone and you're getting 13 grams, 20 grams. You go deeper and you start the grades 16 grams, 10 grams. So what's really exciting about that is, as you can see here, this is the OG zone. Here's the South Pacific zone. It keeps on extending, and you've got exceptional high grade continuity, and it's open to keep going to the north and keep going deeper. And this is shaping up to be a multi-million ounce gold deposit. Who knows, this thing could go over 10 million ounces. You got a 25 million ounce gold deposit straight to the north. This is going in the northern direction in the same package of rock. It's associated to the same fault system. The Granite Creek project is another world-class project. They've got 3 world-class projects in this company, 2 of them at Ruby Hill, and then the Granite Creek. And the quality of these projects kind of puts their 1 million ounce gold deposit that the McCoy Cove, 1 million ounces at over 10 grams. That in itself is quite exceptional. There's not a lot of those 1 million ounce plus deposits that are open with a 10 gram average grade. Those kind of things are cash machines. And now it looks like they've got, you know, the potential for 4 cash machines inside of one company. And that's why I keep going back to the point that I think that they have the runway to be a $5 billion or more company. They currently have a valuation of about 580 million. You know, to look at a $580 million company and think that they're undervalued, let alone that they have the potential for a 10-bagger, is quite exceptional in this business. You don't see that very often. And but with four exceptional projects, three of them can easily be, well, I think even McCoy Cove can be considered quite exceptional because it looks like it's a cash machine as well. They've got all the hallmarks to be a multi-billion-dollar company of the future, and they keep on getting great results with their drilling, and that trend will continue. In fact, they seem to come out with a news release that kind of knocks your socks off every couple of weeks for this whole, since they've been publicly trading. They came out of a merger, or a sale where Premier Gold was sold, and they spun out some of their assets into I-80 Gold, and I-80 Gold has only been trading for a little over a year. So it's a young company. It has tremendous assets. Not only do they have these great projects that they've been mining, but they also have, or that they have been drilling into and are developing, and they'll start production from Granite Creek here pretty soon. And but they've also got infrastructure to process sulfide material, and you know, those assets, those kind of things cost $1 billion or more, billion and a half to build. And so you know, a company, sorry, earlier I quoted that they were at about a $500 million valuation. With the recent move upwards, they're now at an $850 million valuation. But it might cost you twice as much as that to build their processing facilities. So they're undervalued just on their processing facilities alone, let alone that they have all of these great projects. And again, I think they're on a runway to be a multi-billion-dollar company. And I think they're a cornerstone holding for investors. I'm very fortunate that they've been a sponsor of my website, so I've been able to do a bunch of interviews with Ewan Downey. You can go to my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News and find those interviews. It's a good place for you to start your research on the company. Go to their website. You can do additional research by looking at their news releases. I've often said that you just have to go and look at the headlines from their news releases over this last year to be impressed about the quality of what they have. And then if you do some additional homework and look inside the news releases at their cross sections and the distribution of their gold, and now the distribution of the CRD and the high grade gold inside the CRD, you know, it's an exceptional company that I've often said that I see them on the same path as a young Barrick, and every news release along the way gives me more confidence that that comment will be proven out. Now, right beside the Ruby Hill project is where Paycore, another very young company, has recently put out excellent results. On November 14th, they announced that Paycore Minerals intersects 14.8 meters of 6.3% zinc, 10.3% lead, 376 grams of silver, 7.1 grams of gold, including 5.8 meters of 9.4% zinc, 3% lead, 248 grams of silver, and 15.9 grams of gold. So this is another project right beside the Ruby Hill. I'm going to go back to my Google Earth here, and you follow those same structures that I pointed out earlier, and you come to Ruby Hill here, and they're finding the same thing, a CRD with a high-grade gold overprint. You know, this is not coincidental. This is isn't you know, really it goes beyond being world class, because the value, the in situ value of the rock that these two companies are finding puts them at values that are some of the best numbers in the world of exploration. You know, and these two companies are, what are they here? Let me get a ruler out on, so from here, let me get this to work properly. Sorry about that. I'm getting a little screwed up, but if you go from here, it's not working. You're 1,780 meters away. You're talking less than 2 kilometers. About 1.5 of that belongs to I-80, and then you come into Ruby Hill, and they've got about 2 kilometers of this important faults. I'm going to talk about the company that has the property right beside them next. But okay, so let's go back to Paycore here. And let's take a look at their chart. November 14th, look at the volume. Look at the dramatic move above their 52 or 50-day moving average. They're now 50 cents above the 50-day moving average. And that 50-day moving average is moving upwards. So it's in a very bullish pattern right now. And a lot of that has to do with the combination of where they are, what they're hitting, where they're located in close proximity to I-80 Gold. So these two companies are starting to be looked at together. When people are looking at I-80 Gold, they're also starting to look at Paycore Minerals. And then we're getting a better market for the price of gold and silver. And, you know, so they've got plenty of catalysts to move the stock forward. It seems like every time that I-80 Gold puts out good news, Paycore moves up as well, and then they put out good news, they move up. And it's because these two projects are, you know, I think they're geologically linked. You look at those faults and the likelihood that they're coming from the same source is very highly probable. And that's why you're seeing both of them with similar stuff. You've got thick intersections, you've got zinc, lead, silver, gold, extreme high-grade gold overprinting. And I think that what has happened is that the faults or the cracks in the earth that allow those fluids to come up in a CRD and a gold system are following the same path of least resistance through that series of faults that are right between, well, they go from beyond the pit at I-80 Gold all the way beyond Paycore's ground. So the combination of that is quite exciting for this whole area. And then I start thinking about the whole area. And this area had a 100-year history starting in the 1860s, where there was widespread mining of CRD deposits. And that's a hell of a place to look for more CRDs. And these two companies, I-80 Gold and Paycore, have found CRDs with a high-grade gold overprint. And why these CRDs are so important and why I'm so bullish on what these two companies have found is because you look at one of the big successes in the mining sector, in the exploration sector over the last decade. It was a company called Arizona Mining. I featured the company on my reports when they were about 30 to 50 cents. They blasted off after that and were bought out at close to $2 billion Canadian. Because of the success that they had finding a CRD. And so these CRDs are very valuable because they have that, what I said earlier, this extreme high value, in situ value of metals, and they can have a lot of that material. And those are extremely profitable to mine. And that's why a major would pay $2 billion for a company that was exploring and finding a CRD. But important to note is that Arizona Mining was your classic CRD, zinc, lead, and silver. It didn't have a high-grade gold component to it, and that's what really makes what I-80 Gold and Paycore have so exceptional. And I think they'll be the drivers of these two companies to go a lot higher. I mean, in the case of I-80 Gold, they have a lot more assets than the CRD. Right beside the CRD, they have a high-grade gold deposit that looks like it could be a multi-million ounce gold deposit. They got another project where they got it look like they have another multi-million ounce gold deposit. They've got all the infrastructure, and that's why they have such a significantly higher valuation. But Paycore, you know, when you're looking at a company with a $47 million valuation, and it looks like they're finding something with better grades than the Arizona Mining, you know, they've got a lot of blue sky ahead of them as far as I'm concerned. So that's another one that's a sponsor of my website. And I've done interviews with Christina McCarthy, as well as Jim Gallons. And Jim Gallons is a important person in this story as well, because he was the president of Arizona Mining through discovery when they were bought out. And he's a metallurgist. He knows how to get these metals out of this kind of material out of the rock. And I won't put words into his mouth. Just go to the interview. You can find it on YouTube, where I interviewed Christina and Jim. And you can hear it from the horse's mouth on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. So that's the story on Paycore. The next company is a tiny little company. It's Golden Lake. What makes Golden Lake quite exciting is that I'm gonna go and oh, here, I got to get to their photo sections. Where is it? Projects, Jewel Ridge, Image Gallery. In their past drilling, they hit another CRD that had 3.23 meters, 57 grams of gold, 452 grams of silver, 7.23% lead, 11.99% zinc. This is in the same realm of what Paycore and I-80 Gold are finding on their CRD. And these guys have a tiny valuation of only 5.8 million. Now I'm going to switch over to back to my Google Earth. And so here you have a high-grade CRD with a high-grade gold overprint. Ruby Hill, another CRD with a high-grade gold overprint. Then you go down here to this Eureka tunnel. By the way, look at this network of faulting. Keeps going right on to Golden Lake. You go to the this project, and up in here they hit that those numbers that I was just talking about. So again, it's another, and here's an important part. Here's the Eureka tunnel, and here's the material that the old timers were mining a CRD. And they drilled over here and they found more of that CRD. And so now you've got 1, 2, 3 CRDs with high-grade gold overprint. You know, this is not rocket science. These are special systems that are happening here just outside the town of Eureka, Nevada. And it makes these world-class projects for any metal, anywhere in the world. And, so it's quite surprising to see your Golden Lake with such a tiny valuation, considering where they are, the geological structures, the mineralizing systems, what they found in their past drilling in 2020. I think that this company will. I'm now an advisor to this company, by the way. And what I'm pushing for is to get drilling here as soon as possible. I think that, the timing is exceptional right now, considering how this area is emerging as a just a knock your socks off CRD area with this exciting high-grade gold overprint that makes it, in reality, those grades are multiples of the grade of what Arizona Mining had in their resource. Now, they had a lot more work that went into that resource, so it's a lot bigger. But nothing indicates that what I-80 Gold has, what Ruby Hill has, and what Golden Lake has could turn into the same kind of size. It's the same kind of mineralization system, a CRD. In reality, with the grades and the in-situ rock value that these companies are finding, you don't need to have a huge-sized deposit to make a tremendously valuable and high-grade production from those kind of deposits. And so I think that this is becoming the most important new exploration region in Nevada in many years. And I think it's got a tremendous amount of legs for all three of these companies, I-80 Gold, Paycore, and Golden Lake. And that story doesn't really stop at the end of Golden Lake's ground. The next company I'm going to talk about is Timberline. And Timberline is the project right beside Golden Lake. Sorry about that. I went to the wrong screen here. Let me get that back up. I'm sure you don't want to see about Google Google there. Let me get to Timberline, the main website. So here's so Timberline has the ground that's immediately to the south of Golden Lake exploration. And why is that not? The site's not cooperating with me today. Let's go back here. We'll go to this. We'll go to their corporate presentation. That helps me tell the story anyways. Okay, so when I go back to Google Earth, you'll see some of this stuff. Lookout Mountain target. They have a resource here. Oswego is right there. In between there is a big geophysical anomaly. I believe they have it showing. Where is it? Lookout Mountain. Where's that big geophysical anomaly? So there's that big geophysical anomaly. Here's the resource. They've been really focused on drilling off and increasing the size of that resource because one, it's already a substantial resource, and they keep stepping over to the east, and they keep getting higher grade. So that's quite an exceptional situation. And then you've got this big geophysical anomaly here with faults running through it, that very well could be the plumbing system for this resource. Over here on the other side, you've got the Oswego target. There's the dugout tunnel fault comes along here, and then there's a secondary fault that intersects right there, and that's where they got their best channel sampling of 14 grams and 12 grams. This is not coincidence. These kind of intersections of faults are great places to look for high-grade mineralization, and that's exactly what I think they have at Oswego when they start drilling. But this resource has been keeping them pretty busy. As you can see here, this is the contact of the mineralized or rock packages, and you can see all this mineralization. What's really exciting is that right here you've got a buried fault, and the mineralization keeps going towards that fault, and it actually goes on the other side of that fault. That is a likely place where they have the mineralization is in that, could be plumbing for all this mineralization that they're finding in the resource. And it continues, as you can see, this rock package drops down due to that fault, and but the mineralization continues, or they think it continues on the other side of the fault. And then you go over back to that geophysical map, and here you go. Here's where all that mineralization and all those that fault is going towards this big geophysical anomaly. This is an exciting target. But then they also recently did some drilling just to the north of the resource, and it looks like they've tagged into the start of a CRD system. So there you go, as another company. Let's go to Google Earth, and we'll go down here, and where are we? There we go. So now we're continuing to go to the south. So up here you've got the Ruby, or the Archimedes pit, owned by IAU.T Gold. Then you got the Ruby Hill project, owned by Paycore. Then you got the Eureka tunnel, where all three of these have high-grade CRDs. And then you see these faults, they continue to go down. And here's where Lookout Mountain, where they have that resource. And that big geophysical anomaly with faults going through it. And I think over here is where Oswego is, somewhere over here. Maybe over here. So you've got right in here is about where that geophysical anomaly is, and you got big cracks in the earth there that could be the conduit to what got you your resource over here. This whole corridor here, and in fact, Paycore's ground, they're the largest landholder in this Eureka camp, and it continues way down to here. And you look at this whole faulting system, and it gets you excited. Then you can even zoom in and look at all this alteration here. Look at all this alteration. That's an exciting target on its own. They've got other spots with alterations, and all three of these companies do. And look at all this old mining. This is on the property. Look at these big holes that the old timers were digging. This all is part of the Paycore's ground. Then you follow this up here, and you run into a big alteration package here with big geochem. This whole corridor, Timberline, basically starts over here somewhere. Timberline, Golden Lake, Paycore, IAU.T Gold. IAU.T Gold is bringing a tremendous amount of interest to this area, and it's paying off for Paycore, and I think it will also pay off for Golden Lake and Timberline. And so there's another company. I didn't pull up their chart yet, but here's Timberline. It's also trading above its 50-day moving average, even got above its 200-day. I think that you can see this 50-day is turning upwards. And I think that this one is heading towards a golden cross somewhat like I-80 Gold just went through a golden cross, and these trends are exciting. The companies are exciting. What they're finding with their drilling is exciting, and I think it takes these companies a whole lot higher. And that's why I'm so impressed with this area around Eureka, Nevada. And the next company I'm going to talk about is a company that I just brought on as a sponsor of my website. I'm going to go to their news release, and I picked up on this news release as soon as they announced it. I invited Andrew Pollard on to do an interview on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. And I had been following this company for a couple of years. And then they did this sort of a Hail Mary drilling. The Silver Cloud project was their first project when the new management of Andrew Pollard and Bill Howell took over the company. And they had some success with the drilling over on the east, more towards the east side of their project. But then they got this project in Tonopah to the south, and it really kept them busy for the last year and a half because they were finding a lot of high-grade silver. In fact, they have about a 42 million ounce silver resource with a grade of over 400 grams per ton of silver. So that kept them busy, and it keeps them busy. But then they did these 3 holes back at Silvercrest or Silver Cloud, and Andrew described it in our interview as somewhat of a Hail Mary, that they were going to do these 3 holes and may either kill it or make it live. And when you hit 52 grams of gold and 600 grams of silver over 1.5 meters, that's pretty exciting stuff, especially when it's quite a distance from any historical holes that were drilled. I think that the nearest one is about 500 meters from where they hit this at their Northwest Canyon project. This is knock your socks off sort of stuff. 52 grams of gold and 600 grams of silver. They've got mines around there that are in these epithermal vein systems that are, that's about, this is, it kind of gets me a little bit speechless, to tell you the truth. I live in Zacatecas, Mexico, and there's a lot of big silver mines around me. In fact, the Mag Silver deposit is only about 30 miles from me, and their average grade is about 350 grams of silver over average widths of 1 to 4 meters. When you get 52 grams and 600 grams of silver, 52 grams of gold and 600 grams of silver over 1.5 meters, that's exciting stuff. Just to put that into context, at the Mag Silver mine, that's a cash machine at an average grade of 350 grams of silver. And the other thing that's exciting is that the reason that it's so profitable to mine that stuff from Mag Silver is because they're close to infrastructure, they're close to highways, and same story with Nevada. It's an exceptionally low-cost place to mine. And so when you get these kind of grades, it's time to stand up and take notice. But as you can see in their stock chart, the market really didn't get too excited about that news, although it's now trading just a couple cents above its 50-day moving average. As you can notice here, the 50-day bottomed and is now trending upwards. I think it has a lot higher to go. And the reason I say that is that, let's go over to the Tonopah project. And at Tonopah, they have a resource of 42 million ounces of silver. It has 19 million ounces of silver or 20, let's say 20 million ounces of silver and 238,000 ounces of gold. And they highlight a block diluted grades. Now, when you're doing resources, sometimes these resources can have a lot of arm waving in it. What I mean by that is that they don't really constrain it to what looks like something that would be mineable. And in the case of Blackrock, they did. They're not, they didn't put marginally mineable stuff. They wanted to have a realistic resource, and that realistic interpretation of what they have comes out with a gold or silver equivalent grade of 446 grams per ton of silver. Remember earlier I was talking about Mag Silver, which is over $1 billion company mining the same kind of epithermal veins with a grade of 350 grams. So they got about 100 grams more per ton. And it's in Nevada, an exciting place to work. But what I'm going to go down a little further in their presentation here. And this is a really interesting slide here. What you can see here is the silver crest is just an outlier way on the right side and way up on the top of the chart. And basically what this means is that they're getting about $5.20 per share in enterprise value to resource. And the reason that they're getting is it's kind of a freak. It's almost a 900 gram per ton silver equivalent grade. Again, I'll point you back to what I said earlier about Mag Silver. Mag Silver has an exceptional money-making machine, and Silvercrest is also in an epithermal vein system, by the way. So then you look over, and Blackrock is leading the charge against several of their peers in grade. They're at a 450 grade. And they're starting to be towards the top of the valuation enterprise value to resource at about $1, let's say $1.25. Now, when I talked to Andrew Pollard in that interview that you can find on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, he said some things that really stood out to me, which was that he believes that they can close the gap between Silvercrest for a couple of reasons. Main reason is that now they think that they can increase the resource in size, and they now have a better handle on the high-grade mineralization, and they can focus their drilling on drilling out the high-grade portions of their various different veins. So what he was explaining is that he thinks that that total resource grade can go up quite significantly. And the further they move that up to the right, the further they will move it up in the valuation that they're getting for their ounce, their stock valuation they're getting for the resource. So, when you can start pointing in the direction of a Silvercrest, there's another thing that stood out to me when I talked to Andrew, was that he points out that Silvercrest, their first resource, was very similar in size and in grade to the resource that Blackrock put out. And so, they're in the same kind of an epithermal vein system. So that's not pie in the sky thinking. They have what looks like could be a freakish type. You call Silvercrest a freak? Well, Blackrock could be freakish as well. And that's a very exciting story just on their on their resource project at Tonopah. They've drilled some significant step out, so it definitely looks like it's open. It can get bigger. They can focus in on the high grade. They can probably bring their resource grade up. And, you know, that puts them in a very special situation for silver companies. And I'm a big bull on silver companies, mainly because there's not a lot of them out there, especially ones that you can consider significantly undervalued. And that's what I think Blackrock is. I think that they're very undervalued for the resource alone, and the potential that they can increase that resource and increase the grade, and move up towards a Silvercrest kind of valuation for what they have in the ground. And so Blackrock is a tremendous story. I'm super glad that they became a sponsor of my shows. And now that what that means is that I can do a bunch of interviews with Andrew and and hear about the Blackrock story as it evolves from a very oversold stock to what I think will become a much bigger company. And that's before even looking at their Silver Cloud project, where they just hit that bonanza grade that I talked about earlier and showed you guys on the screen. You know, now they've got two projects to sink their teeth into. So that just adds to the excitement for me. And then they've also drilled into a lithium system. And so these guys have three projects that are quite exciting, and you know, they could be suffering from the tax loss selling season, but that's winding down over the next couple of weeks, and you know, it will be moderated somewhat because gold and silver are performing very well in December here, and looks like we're setting up for a Santa Claus rally with the price of gold and silver, which will set up for a good January effect. And that's often an indicator how the year ahead will be. So I think we're going to end the year in a bullish pattern for gold and silver. We're going to start the year with a good technical indicator, which is the silver or the January effect. And that has a way of pointing towards a bullish year of 2023 for the price of gold and silver. And this company is focused on that. And they're one of a very few exploration companies that are focused on silver and have the gold kicker as well. So, you know, do your homework on Blackrock and stay tuned for more interviews. I'm really excited to bring this company on as a sponsor, and we'll be following this one. And I think it won't be long before you start to see their stock valuation much better than it is right now. Okay, so before I leave Nevada, I'm going to talk about another of my sponsors, which is Walker River Resources. Walker River Resources, let me bring up their stock chart here. And let's get off of that screen. So Walker River Resources here is it's kind of performing a lot like i-80 Gold. It had some good news out and it blasted off above the 50-day moving average. Now that 50-day moving average is trending upwards. They've traded above their 200-day moving average. And I think that in the not too distant future, they will have a golden cross that takes, and you'll see the stock price go much higher than that. And why I say that is they've done some important drilling recently at their project in let me get it up there. Updates their drill program at the Lapon Gold project. they basically gave you a rundown of their drilling. They're drilling just above this hotspot zone where they hit 7.62 grams per ton gold over 48 meters. They had another hole with 5.68 grams per ton gold over 60 meters. Another one with 2 grams, 1.84 grams per ton gold over 122 meters. To put that into context, there's a thing called metal factor where you multiply the grams per ton by the meters. And if you get over 100, that's often where you find mines. So you've got 50 meters there of that is close to 400, 60 meters that's got a metal factor of over 300, 1.84 times, another 200 or so. What's really exciting is they're just drilling like they drilled like maybe 50 meters above where they hit those results. So now I'm going to go back to Google Earth and let's see, where are we? La Pond, there you are. Okay, so I'm going to go to another part of Nevada, thanks to the folks at Google Earth. And I'm going to zoom into their La Pond Canyon project. And a couple things that I'll identify. First of all, this is La Pond Canyon. This is a big fault that, again, a big crack in the earth that is where the the gold bearing fluids can make their way up. And then I would point out a big alteration area here. Then I would further point out that you've got some secondary faulting that comes right down to the La Pond Canyon. In fact, it continues over onto this side of the La Pond Canyon, and you've got more alteration over here and historical mining. So now I'm gonna zoom in so you can see this road, the road throughout this project. So basically, over an area that you've got lots of faulting and lots of alteration, there's been drilling from here, and other parts, and they have hit high-grade gold over from one side to the other over an area of about 600 meters. Then you go up and you keep following these roads up, and up here somewhere is where they drilled the top of that hotspot zone. You can see more alteration over there, even up there. So if you go to the highest hit and realize that gold mineralization continues all the way down to the bottom, that's about a vertical of about 800 meters. And as you can see at the top here, it flattens out. And why that's important is that all of the drilling they were doing here was from the side of a mountain. And to be able to follow the mineralization and find out the controls and the continuity when you're drilling from the side of a mountain is very challenging. But what's exciting is now they're able to get on top here and they started drilling right down to this hotspot zone that basically starts way up here, and they got holes down in here of that hotspot zone. So now they're able to go from the top here and start drilling vertical holes and following that high-grade mineralization at depth. And what this enables them to do is they can set up from here and drill multiple holes in various different directions. And that's going to give them an understanding of the gold mineralizing system. And ultimately, what I believe is going to happen is that they're going to be able to chase that high-grade mineralization all the way from way up at the top of the mountain down and follow it with accuracy from the top down. And then when they start drilling from the sides, they can be more accurate to follow that mineralization down to the bottom. But even at the bottom, it's exciting because you've got these faults that are coming into a cross-cutting, a big crack in the earth that continues up this side, where there's been also historical mining, also faulting, also alteration. Then you go over here, somewhere over here, and you get their Pikes Peak target. And at their Pikes Peak target, it looks like a porphyry, which is probably the heat engine that brought all of this mineralization up these faults and up into here. They drilled some holes over there at Pikes Peak, and those holes are pending as well. If that is the heat engine, it will be a very powerful system that drove the mineralization all the way over here. And that could be an exciting discovery on its own, the porphyry that drove this high-grade gold mineralization all the way over to here. Walker River Resources has a very exciting story on their hands. I think that they've got something exceptional at their Lapon Gold project. And I really think that they've come to a seminal point where they're starting to understand their entire mineralizing system from a potential porphyry all the way along the faults that then pump that fluid through those faults and up to the top of Lapon Mountain. And now they're able to start drilling from the top of the mountain and drill down and try to connect all of that high-grade gold mineralization. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this company. And they currently only have a valuation of about $13 million Canadian. I think that it's got a lot of blue sky ahead of it. Okay. Now I finished with my 6 companies in Nevada. So now I'm going to switch over to orogenic gold systems. And why I'm so excited about orogenic gold systems is because the famous one is the Fosterville mine in Australia. And Fosterville, it was a company maker really for a company that already was very big in that I'm talking about Kirkland Lake. When they started mining the sorry, I'm scrolling through the screen here. I'm going to find a great map for you to look at. When they started mining the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine, which is an orogenic gold system, it made them one of the lowest cost producers. I think their cost of production was at about $500 a ton or an ounce, and turned them into a real serious cash machine. And oh, here's the one I'm looking for. Okay, I want to get this one up there for you because I think it's so important. When they found the Swan Zone, started mining it, turned them into a cash machine, and ultimately they went from an already $1 billion plus company to about a 20 billion billion company when they were bought out, and it was one of the best performing gold stocks out there because of this low cost production from an orogenic gold system at their Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine. And here you have what I think is the start of a Swan Zone for the Moosehead project owned by Sokoman. So you can see that close to surface, they were drilling along and finding the western trend, the upper eastern trend, then the eastern trend. They kept on following it down. Lots of high-grade gold in this system, very reminiscent of a Fosterville mine, but it was not over thick intersections. And these orogenic gold systems are they're cracks in the earth, these faults that open up the path of least resistance for these high-grade fluids, and they're very deep faults. And they can often go on for 3,000-4,000 meters. And so you get a distribution of gold that as you get deeper, you get these increasing grades. So they were fairly close to surface, drilling away, finding a lot of high-grade gold. Then they drilled this MH22463 zone that they announced back in September, that had 39.6 meters at 12.5 grams per ton gold. Included in that was a 10-meter intersection of 41.97 grams per ton gold. They even had including in that a few meters of about 100 grams per ton gold. So those are the kind of things that you find at a Swan Zone in the Fosterville mine. So then they had, then what they did is they sent a camera down the drill hole, and they were able to look at the mineralization. A structural geologist was able to look at the mineralization. And what he came up with is this interpretation of why they got this extreme high grade gold mineralization reminiscent of the Swan Zone. It's because all these zones are all going in the same direction, as is the eastern zone. But then you've got, it's going in the east, and then you've got one coming from the west. And why this is so important is I'm going to scroll down here, and this is a model of the Swan Zone, a schematic of the Fosterville. And down here is where you see the actual Swan Zone itself. It's not a very big ore body, and because it doesn't have to be, it's extremely high grade and very profitable mining from that. But what I would point out to you here is that look at your different directions. Here you've got one zone going in that direction. Then you've got another zone coming up here. You've got a zone over here, another one coming in this direction, another one coming from over here, and then going in that direction. Do you see what I mean about, and complex faulting? The 463 zone, this is the approximate level. So, you know, they're not even down to close to the level depths that the Swan Zone was found in, but they're already tagging what looks like the top of a Swan Zone. And that's an exciting situation. You know, I think that this company, you know, when you consider that the Swan Zone was a company maker for Kirkland Lake, and they were already over $1 billion company. And here you've got a company that has a valuation of $51 million Canadian, and it looks like they might be tagging into the top of a Swan Zone kind of system. And they have a very talented structural geologist that looked at that down the drill hole through the camera, and was able to see what he thinks is a where all the veins were coming from the down going towards the east. This one's coming up from the west. Again, reminiscent of the Swan Zone. I think Sokoman has something very exciting, and they're drilling that around that 463 zone as we speak. I think that they're going to get some exciting stuff in the not too distant future. So stay tuned watch their news releases very closely. I think they've got some big news to come out, and you know, they're trending upwards. They're right now trading at their 50-day moving average. It looks like they're very close to having a golden cross. And as I said, those golden crosses have a way of taking a stock much higher. And they have the catalyst, I believe, that will lead them in that direction. So they call it the 463 zone. I call it the jewelry box zone. Maybe we'll have to put it together one day and I'll convince them to call it the 463 jewelry box. But again, I think that they're starting to hit the top of a swan zone, like at the Fosterville mine. It's the same kind of a situation. It's an orogenic gold system, and they're finding the high grade. In fact, I wanted to show you one last picture before I leave. This is on their website, and here's the drill core from Moosehead, and then they've got a piece here that's sitting on top of the from the Fosterville mine. Same kind of rock. You could mistake that from coming from the Moosehead project. Same kind of situation is what they're finding at Moosehead, is what they found at Fosterville. So again, I don't think I'm waving arms here to think that this this pierce point here of that purplish zone is the top of a swan zone. And the fact that they're drilling it right now has me very excited. So stay tuned and watch for news from Sokoman. And again, they're a sponsor of my website. So I've done a bunch of interviews over the years with Tim Froud. I think he's an exceptionally talented geologist. He has a very good team around him. And they're now hitting what they've been looking for the last few years. And I think that's going to drive them to be a much bigger company in the near term. All right. So now I'm going to talk about Galantas. Galantas Gold is another company that's looking for has found an orogenic gold system. As you can see in that map there, they have the Kearney vein and the Joshua vein. That's where they've been doing most of their drilling. And they see those high grades intersections and over pretty thick intersections for an orogenic gold system. I think that they also have what could be a swan zone or more, maybe more than one swan zones, like at the Fosterville mine. That Kearney vein and the Joshua vein, in between them is the Kerr vein. And as you can see, in a very tight area there, they have a bunch of veins in a key package of rock that is along a fault. Okay, so these are all the hallmarks of a orogenic gold system like at Fosterville. So now I'm going to go down and I want to show you something else here. Here's that green package of rock. Here's where the Kearney vein has been drilled so far, very close to surface. But that package of rock continues, and that's exactly what you want in an orogenic gold system. You want the right kind of package of rock related to a structural story. The structure allows the fluids from deep underground to make their way to the surface. Then they find their way into these right kind of rock packages, and the rest is history. So they are really at the top of the system, and they're already finding high-grade gold, like at an orogenic, or like at a swan zone kind of a situation. And what's also interesting is that this was historically in production. Then it shut down for a number of years, and recently they're now bringing it back into production. The idea is that they'll use the free cash flow from that production to then follow this orogenic gold system much deeper. And I think that's what will be the company makers as they keep going deeper, because already right at surface, they're finding dilation zones. And these are where the rocks open up and some more of that gold-bearing fluids can make their way into it. And they have a trend of those dilation zones. And as they keep on following those, I think that they're going to find one or more swan zones. And earlier I mentioned that they have the Kearney vein and the Joshua vein, and in between it is the Kerr vein. And there's other veins in that area as well, and they're all tightly packed, really close to each other. The likelihood of what's happening here is that the mineralizing event, or let's say the conduit that brought those fluids into the Kearney vein, into the Joshua vein, into the Kerr vein, and into those other veins, is likely the same system. And so they probably come together as you go deeper into that system. And if that's the case, then you've got something world class sitting down there. And I think that's exactly what they have. And I think they've got a great business plan to use the funds, free cash flow from production of near surface gold, to then follow that orogenic gold system deeper. And that's really what you have to do. These orogenic gold systems go very deep, sometimes 3,000–4,000 meters. And what you find in them is that as you go deeper, the grade gets stronger. An example of that is the Red Lake mine in Ontario, where Goldcorp had to go down over 1,000 meters. And when they did, they got into 2 ounce and more per ton rock. And mining that made them the lowest cost producer of gold and one of the best performing gold stocks when they were mining that extreme high grade stuff. And so there's a zonation of grade. As you get deeper into the system, you're getting closer to the heat source where that gold mineralization comes from. And that's why as you get deeper in the system, the grades keep getting better and better. But I would point out that even the stuff that they're drilling near surface, like they're getting over a half ounce and more type of gold grades over some pretty thick intersections for an orogenic gold system, by the way, in these dilation zones. And so they've got another exciting orogenic gold system. I think that they're sitting on something that's world class, and they've got a business plan on how to get there. And I think that that's what they'll ultimately do. Now let's take a quick look at their stock chart. As you can see, they recently went through the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average have been trending upwards slightly. But just recently, the 50-day moving average went through the 200-day moving average. That's a golden cross. And I think that this is a indicator that the stock is going very much higher. And the reason that I say that is they have catalysts from both their production and their drilling that can drive that valuation much higher. So in the past, they were a sponsor of my shows, and recently they joined on again. So in the past, I did a bunch of interviews with Mario Stefano from Galantas, and I'm going to be doing a bunch more in the future. And I think this is another exciting orogenic gold system you want to pay attention to. And with a valuation of only 56 million, I think that offers investors a very cheap entry point. I think, as I said, I think they've got lots of catalysts ahead of them. Okay, let's move over to base metals. I'm going to talk next about 9 Mile Metals. Recently, 9 Mile Metals announced the XRF results from their California Lake project. At California Lake, they hit 18.38% combined lead and zinc. They had about a 10-meter intersection that had range of grades from, let's say, 1% zinc all the way up to 11.77 in one hole. Even had some sniffs of copper. That's important because, you know, the zonation of grade in these VMS deposits at the top of this of the system, you'll have zinc, lead, and silver. And below that, you'll have a copper and gold zone. And the XRF is not very accurate at picking up the precious metals. It is very good at picking up the base metals in a sulfide system. I think what they will see is now that those are in the assay lab, I think that they're going to get a good grade of silver and probably some sniffs of gold. These sniffs of copper don't get anybody excited, but it does excite me because I understand the zonation of grade in a volcanogenic massive sulfide system. And I think that what this is a precursor to is that below the lead, zinc, and silver zone, they're going to have a copper and gold zone. So then they announced that from another hole, look at these grades. They hit another, well, what's that, 3.17 meter intersection. It had 3.85% zinc, 15.12, 10.36. That combines your lead and your zinc to 4.66, 18.38, and 13.69. Just some really exceptional stuff. And this shows you the geophysics of where they've drilled. You'll see that this is really interesting because they have a pretty good trend of geophysical anomalies. That there's this lightish blue. I don't know if you can see it. It's like pearls on a string, and that's where they're hitting a VMS system. And I think they've got a bunch to find there. And these are the geophysics is likely just showing you the top of the system. And these VMS systems, you know, they're volcanogenic events. They're volcanoes, and that's what brings the metal-bearing fluids to the surface. And it looks like, well, you look at the drill core, it's just loaded. They note that one intersection had 95% massive sulfides. This is an exciting new discovery of massive sulfides. And what makes it even more impressive is that this is their second target that they drilled off of a geophysical anomaly and have now found two zones of massive sulfides. Okay, so this is what I'm going to zoom out here is, okay, so California Lake, that VMS is over here, about 20 kilometers from 9 Mile lens. The lens that they hit is about a 10-meter intersection of high-grade copper and zinc, with also lead, silver, and gold in it, which makes it the highest grade massive sulfide hit in the third most important massive sulfide mining camp in the world. This is called the Brunswick mining camp, Bathurst mining camp, sorry. And the granddaddy of the monster of the Bathurst mining camp is this Brunswick 12. It's a huge VMS, 300 million ton VMS. And down here you have Brunswick 6, which was another important mine. Over here you have the Heath Steel mine, another important mine in the Bathurst. Actually, these are three of them. Well, this is the most important. It's 10 kilometers from that lens. You look at about a 15-kilometer radius, and you've got three impressive mines in close and 9-mile lens is sort of the bullseye in the middle. So now I'm going to zoom into 9-mile lens here, and these yellow lines I've drawn, there's a geophysical anomaly that comes right down this structure. The structure continues down here, and in very close proximity to this 9-mile lens, there's a hinge in the rock package that you can also see in the geophysics. That is an ideal location for where the source of that thick, 10-meter thick, high-grade copper, zinc, lead, silver, gold lens was found. And it's the highest grade massive sulfide occurrence in third most important VMS mining camp in the world. This is extremely exciting stuff. What makes it more extremely exciting is that they're now drilling, as we speak, to drill towards that hinge to look for the source of that lens. I think they're going to find it. When they do, I think it's just going to blow the top off of this company's valuation. Currently, the valuation, let me go back here, is the valuation on 9 Mile is only $16 million Canadian. But they have just a phenomenal story. You just need to look at the map here. Here you've got a massive sulfide hit. Over here, you've got a massive sulfide hit. You've got a structural story here. By the way, I drew these other yellow lines because I see structures that are intersecting this structure. Continuing over here, you've got a big hinge here. This is a prime area to look for more massive sulfide occurrences. But then let's zoom out here, and it's not a very big zoom out. And you see the Brunswick 12, the Brunswick 6, the Heath Steel, and in close proximity, you're finding 9 Mile is using geophysics, and they've found 2 new massive sulfide occurrences that now they're drilling to find the source of this lens that was very thick and high grade. Then they're going to be looking for the source of the massive sulfides at California Lake. But getting back to this lens, when you have such a thick lens of extreme high grade, that not only tells you that you have something exciting that's right at surface, it starts at 0 and goes down for the first 10 meters. That tells you something about the system, the rest of where the source, where that lens came from. The source is likely going to be extremely high grade. And because you're in a camp that's known for big VMS deposits, you've got the potential for size and extreme grade. That just doesn't happen very often in the mineral exploration business. The last time I saw that happen in my career was Diamond Fields Resources when they found their VMS. They were bought out for $4 billion. Uh, you know, 9 Mile is in elephant country. They're finding new occurrences in elephant country that's been looked over by many people. They're using some unique methods of geophysics where they're using big data and algorithms to filter out the noise of geophysics and help them target where they should drill to find massive sulfides. It's worked 2 for 2 so far. They have plenty of other targets based on that geophysics or that expert system that they're using. And I think that this is going to grow into a much larger company that's multiples of their current valuation. And I think that they're a great one for investors to look at. Okay. Now I'm going to move, let's take a look at their chart before way back here in the summertime, they went through a golden cross, and look at why these golden crosses are so important. They've just been on an exceptional trajectory. Now their 200-day and their 50-day are all trending upwards. They're trading well above their 200-day. They're trading right at their 50-day. And they have plenty of catalysts. I mean, any day now, they could give us some information on how their drilling is going to look for the source of that lens. If they look like they've got the source of that lens, I don't even want to speculate on what I think the stock's going to do. The most I'll say is I think it'll be a lot multiples of its current valuation if they find the source of that lens, because it's so thick and high grade and it's in elephant country. I just think these guys have a phenomenal story, and it's still in the at the ground floor level, actually probably at the basement level still. So take a look at 9 Mile. Okay, I got another base metal company to talk about. That company is Fireweed Zinc. Let's start with their stock chart. Look at that 50-day moving average. Just went through a golden cross late in November. You know, it's been moving up. It's now trading aggressively above its 50-day moving average, its 200-day moving average, and both the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average are pointing in the bullish direction. Now, why that's happened is, well, this is part of the reason. First assays from 2022 program at Boundary West discovery returns best ever intersection at McMillan Pass, 124 meters of 12.3% zinc, 1.3% lead, 45 grams of silver. Included in that was 6 meters of 19% zinc, 1.6% lead, 64% or 64 grams of silver. The highlights are at Boundary West intersected high-grade massive sulfides and veins with those grades that I just mentioned. Step-out hole NB22-02 successfully extended the Boundary West massive sulfide mineralization, remains open in multiple directions, including towards where geological vectors suggest a feeder zone may be present in which higher grades and thicknesses may be found. So here you have a massive sulfide system that they were really focused in the past on they have these stratigraphic horizons. Think of them like layers of a cake. And in those layers of the cake, they were finding a large area of high-grade zinc. And so they were very focused on that because it was close to surface. It was easy to drill. They were finding it all over the place, and you can't blame them. But last year, I had an interview with Brandon McDonald, who's their CEO. because they drilled this Boundary West target and they hit massive sulfides. And it started to make me wonder, well, if you've got this widespread mineralization in the layers of the cake, where did it come from? And because it was such widespread distribution of high grade, I thought that it had to be a big, powerful system. So then the Boundary West holes are getting closer to this this potential feeder zone. This is a structure that, you know, again, it's where the cracks in the earth that allow the fluids to make their way up. And as they're getting closer to that fault, they're getting the thickest intersection of the highest grades they've ever seen on the project. And this was already a high-grade project at the extension of a massive sulfide system. Now they're getting closer to the source, and they're hitting their thickest and highest grade intersections ever. And what often happens in these massive sulfide systems is, as you're at the top of the system, you get zinc, lead, and silver. You go deeper, and you get into the gold and the copper. They even had some sniffs last year in that Boundary West drilling of some copper, which made me think that, well, maybe they've got a zinc, lead, silver VMS at the top, and below that a copper and gold. So that was an exciting news release. And then they had another exciting news release. And by the way, I talked to Brandon about both of these. But there you can see Fireweed announces Lundin family leading a $27 million private placement. The next day it was up to $35 million. The Lundin family is mining royalty. They've been for decades finding and building mines. This family knows what mines look like. And I think that's exactly what they see is happening at Fireweed Metals project in at the Boundary or the McMillan Pass project, especially this Boundary West part of it is phenomenally exciting. And yet the company only has an $86 million valuation. It looks like they've got a mine of the future on their hands, and still a very reasonable valuation. Again, I point back to their stock charts. Look at this movement that's been happening of late. This golden cross, you're getting the thickest intersections they've ever seen on the project near a massive sulfide feeder system, and the Lundin families is throwing money at them. I don't blame them. I think that these guys have a mine of the future, and they won't have an $86 million valuation when it's all said and done. So that's my my base metals part of the show. Before I've got an Alaska gold play in HighGold, and I want to bring up this news release. 15.5 meters at 4 grams per ton gold equivalent at their Ellis zone. The Ellis zone is about 4 kilometers from where they have over a 1 million ounce gold resource that has a grade of around 10 grams per ton. So last year they drilled into this Ellis zone and hit a 500 and some gram per ton gold and over 1,900 grams per ton silver over 6 meters. And this got everybody tremendously excited. And the drilling that continues at Ellis zone keeps on showing continuity of that high grade, which is exactly what you want to see. Here is some indications of the distribution of the high grade gold. Here is more ideas of the distribution of there's that 6.4 meters of 599 grams of gold equivalent. These are just not the kind of things you find, and they're usually not isolated, and it looks like they've got another zone in the same kind of rocks as their resource, and it's right at surface, so it could be open pit mined, and it continues. They're still getting gold down here. This Ellis zone is very exciting, but I think the real driver of the company is their resource area. So let's go look at this resource. Oh, by the way, they intersected 18.7 grams of gold over 120 meters at their infill drilling at the JT deposit at Alaska. Some people really dismiss these results because when they hear infill, they think that it's right beside what's different about what they did is up till this point where they have over 1 million ounce resource at around 10 grams per ton of gold, they've been drilling in the same direction. So they stepped over and they drilled in the opposite direction with this and got this big kick. So I just want to go down. So this is where, so all of this drilling was going in this direction. Then they came over here and they drilled in this direction. And they hit this big, thick intersection of high grade. And the reason that that's important is that this is like a stockwork of veins. So you've got veins coming up in all different directions. And if you're always drilling in the same orientation, and let's say you've got a series of veins that go in the same direction, you're going to miss them. So when you come in from the other direction, you can cut across them. And that's why it's more important than the market has really given them credit for. But what I also don't think that the market really understands about this JT deposit is that it's a very big system, okay? You've got good thicknesses. Most of these kind of systems are only a few meters thick. This is on average of about 40 meters thick. And it's wide open at depth. And what also is important is that you see this wide distribution of gold here, and that it continues. They have less drilling as you go along down here, but nonetheless, it looks like this system is continuing. Then you've got another system up here, a parallel system. And as you go to, by the way, they have a hole right here, which I'm quite interested in, because I think what's happening here is that these two systems, as you go deeper, are connected. And also the question is to ask is, well, where's all this gold coming from? To get that kind of distribution of high-grade gold, you must have a very powerful system that is deeper. And so what this tells me is that they've got a runway. They've already got about 1.1 million ounce gold resource at let's say a 10-gram grade. I think that has a runway to be in the 2 to 5 million ounce range. And with all this high grade close to surface, you could pay for all of your infrastructure from what's up here, and this is just gravy. And I think that's this resource alone makes them worth more than their current valuation. And the potential for finding Ellis zones and expanding on the Ellis zone is quite exciting as well. It's in the same kind of rock. So these guys have a lot of knowledge, geological knowledge from their historical drilling or on their drilling at the JT deposit. And 4 kilometers away, they're seeing the same kind of rock with the same kind of mineralization. and it includes bonanza, super bonanza grade intersections. And so that also begs the question, well, what's the controls that brought that extreme high grade gold and silver? They're just like maybe 20 holes into that Ellis zone. And they're finding good continuity. Now they got to find the controls for that extreme high grade bonanza stuff. And by the way, that bonanza wasn't over a half a meter or a quarter of a meter. It was over 6 meters. That's something serious at Ellis. Then they've got this JT deposit. Finding 1 million ounce gold deposits with grades that are around 10 grams are very rare in the mining business. They are money-making machines when you put them into production. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here at this JT deposit that's owned by HighGold, that this will be a future mine and it will be a cash machine. And who knows who's going to mine it? Maybe they do, maybe someone buys them out. But I think they have an excellent future ahead of them, and a very cheap valuation relative to the reality of what they have at the JT deposit. Again, I think it's got a runway to be in the 2 to 5 million ounce range. Their Ellis zone and the potential to find more zones. And the guy running the company I've known for many years because we used to work together at a large geological consulting firm. I know that Darwin Green is a very smart and talented geologist, and I think he's got a tiger by the tail here. And the stock chart sure doesn't show it. It's right now trading at its 50-day moving average. But I think that that's creating an excellent opportunity for investors that like to buy bargains. Let me just pull up what their valuation is here. $50 million valuation with a 1 million ounce gold deposit of high grade that looks like it can grow into a 2 to 5 million ounce kind of situation. It's ridiculously cheap, and I think it affords investors that like to buy gold stocks on the cheap a phenomenal opportunity. So take a look at HighGold. All right, and now I have a diamond company, and I think that diamonds are probably the best contrary play in the mining sector. Why I say that is that the price of diamonds are at all-time records right now. Yet there are very few exploration companies focused on diamonds, and all of them have been just abused on their valuations. And Arctic Star is no different. They currently have a valuation of only a few $million Canadian. But they're finding something very interesting. First of all, they're located in close proximity to Canada's 2 big diamond mines, the Diavik and the IAU.T diamond mines. They have I think it's about 46,000 hectares, big property package right beside IAU.T and Diavik. So they found this Sequoia kimberlite complex, and they did some drilling this year, and their caustic fusion results were only on 1.65 tons of core. That in diamonds, that's really minimal amount of sample. And because diamonds are so small in a kimberlite, you have to do large samples in order to get an accurate grade. So what you do is you can use diamond distribution curves and mineral chemistry to give you an idea of what the ultimate grade will be once you start doing big bulk samples. So this is a window into the actual potential of this project. Now, unfortunately, not a lot of people understand this diamond stuff. And it's part of the reason why not a lot of companies are in exploration, and finding those little diamonds in a large volume of rock is very difficult. But when you find a diamond mine, they are tremendously profitable. And what they note here in their highlights is their micro diamond population continues to be dominantly white and clear. That's important because those are the diamonds that get the high valuation, the rough diamonds that get the high valuation. They also note that variations in diamond counts reflect variations in grade from various rock types and areas in the complex. So kimberlites are volcanogenic events, and oftentimes they have multiple pulses. So different volcanoes follow the same path of least resistance the first time, then there's a second, third, fourth phase. And inside of those different phases, you're going to have different grades of diamonds. So that's important. Photos of the larger diamonds are provided on the company's website. So then they show you a series of diamonds, and again, most people don't know what these diamond distribution curves mean, but basically what this tells you is they have a coarse diamond curve that also shows almost commercial sized stones. This is what you want to see from a small sample. They also have a lot of stones per 100 kilograms, 61 diamonds per 100 kilograms. Here you had 95, so it averages out to 69. That's a very good count per 100 kilos. Okay, so then later in the news release, they note that the results are from 6 holes completed in Sequoia, 5 of which encountered kimberlite. It's part of a delineation program of Sequoia. They have to do more drilling. These holes were designed to capture the edge of the kimberlite, so they wanted to drill through and go to the beyond the edge of the kimberlite, which they did. Further drilling is planned for 2023. Because they're in the Northwest Territories, the best time to drill is in the winter time. So they're coming into that winter drilling season. The geophysical signature of the complex is at least 800 meters long, and the holes reported here are from within the southern 200 meters. So remember earlier that I talked about different pulses of the kimberlite. Different volcanic events happen where they follow the path of least resistance. And this represents what was in the southern 200 meters. They also mentioned that remarkable is the consistent description of the stones being overwhelmingly clear and white from SRC Lab. And this continues with the 2022 results. They note that they provide the stones, pictures of those stones. And they said, if this trend continues into the larger commercial stones, it bodes well for a higher than average price for the Sequoia diamonds. Now, that's important. You want to have high value diamonds. Average prices of commercial diamonds in the Lac de Gras field are highly valuable, from US dollars $30 per carat to as much as $450 per carat from kimberlite to kimberlite. The coarse distribution, predominance of white clear stones, the high population of type 2 stones, and the concurring indicator mineral chemistries are layers of evidence that this is achievable. A larger sample with 1,000 carats of commercial-sized diamonds will be required to confirm this. So that's the difficulty in when you're looking at a kimberlite. You've got to process thousands of tons to get 1,000 carats of commercial-sized stones. to figure out what the value, the frequency of the large stones, commercial sized stones are, and ultimately the value of those commercial sized stones. I think they sort of they kind of were conservative when they say that the coarse distribution and the predominance of white stones and the mineral chemistry are layers of evidence that it's achievable. I, in fact, think that the evidence that they have, let's look at their diamond distribution curve. And this diamond distribution curve here, this green one, is suggesting that they're on their way to something that could have well over a carat per ton. And then you look at the mineral chemistry. Again, this is a science of diamonds. You have to use these scientific indicators because there are certain indicator minerals that are known to be attached to or included inside of diamonds that have unique mineral chemistry, and that's indicative of the potential to find certain kinds of stones. And they have very unique indicator mineral chemistry that is known to only occur with very large diamonds. So there again, I think it was a bit of an understatement to say that the layers of evidence that it's achievable that they could have large, high-value stones. It's much more than achievable. Everything is pointing in that direction. And yet the stock got pummeled after this news. It's quite incredible that I really wish more people understood diamonds, because I love diamond exploration. I spent a good chunk of my career in diamond exploration, and I have a passion for it. And it's just because it's difficult and you have to throw a lot of science at it, but it's meaningful because look at the stock price. It's down to 2.5 cents, has been pummeled down to a $5 million valuation after what I consider is exceptional diamond results. Back in the 90s, if you found these kind of results, you would have north of a $500 million valuation. And here they're just getting no respect. They're being treated like Rodney Dangerfield. And I don't think that that's accurate. I think that they're onto something that could turn into a very profitable diamond mine. And if you look at what's happening around them with the Caddy and Diavik, those mines are running to the end of their lives. And if they don't find other kimberlites to feed into their plants, they're going to have to start reclamation, which is very expensive. So they're likely buyers of Arctic Star if in the future. So yeah, I think that diamonds are an ultimate contrary play in the mining sector, and I think Arctic Star is a hell of a contrary play in the diamond sector. So 5 million valuation. I'm just shaking my head seeing these results and how little the market understands about them. All right, before I close, I just want to give a brief blast on gold here. It triple bottomed over the last few months. It's broken out aggressively. Here's the iShares chart, which is linked to the price of gold. It triple bottomed. It's now aggressively trading above its 50-day moving average. The 50-day is in a bullish pattern that's heading towards a golden cross. Right now, the price of gold is trading right on its 200-day moving average. I think that in the not too distant future, you're going to see a golden cross that takes gold much higher. And that's going to help all of these companies, because gold is a sort of a trendsetter in the metals and mining sector. Where gold goes, often the valuations of other metals and the stocks go. And my ultimate argument for that is that in 2022, the price of the US dollar was very strong because of the interest rate increases by the Federal Reserve that fueled the bullish move in the price of the US dollar. But lately it's been turning over. It got up to 114 back in September, now trading at 105. As you can see, it's under pressure. The reason that it's under pressure is people are now believing that the Federal Reserve is finished with their rate increases, or at least ready to slow down. An indicator that that is the case was recently when the Federal Reserve Chairman had a speech, and he talked about the concern that they have for over-tightening. And as they're talking about that, they're worried about over-tightening. We're also seeing that the real estate numbers the sales are just plummeting. It's the worst correction in the history of keeping records on corrections in real estate. That's the why I think the Federal Reserve has been talking about their concerns for over-tightening. And I think that means a pivot is here. The next Fed meeting, I think they've been relentlessly raising it 0.75% each meeting. I think the next one's a half, then a quarter, and then stop. And then within 6 months after that, start their next round of stimulus, because they always overshoot it in either direction. So that's my bullish case for gold. That's my bullish case for all these companies. And on that note, do your homework, speak with your financial advisor. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.